Let's just imagine for a second that you're falling into a deep, heavy trance. Like your physical body just completely shuts down, as if you're weighed down by this incredibly profound sleep. But here's the catch. Instead of drifting off into unconsciousness, your mind suddenly snaps wide awake to the limitless, awe-inspiring vastness of the cosmos. Just think about that. What would you hear, and what would you actually see if the universe itself spoke directly to you? Okay, let's dive right into this because today we are exploring one of the most profound, mind-bending, mystical texts ever recorded. It's called the Poemandres vision. This is a foundational text of the ancient Corpus Hermeticum, and in this explainer, we're going to treat it like the immersive, dreamlike story that it truly is. It's an epic narrative that tries to answer the biggest questions out there: the origin of reality, the tragic nature of the human condition, and ultimately our liberating journey back to the light. So the story starts as the narrator's bodily senses just completely fall away. Suddenly, this boundless, immeasurable being appears out of nowhere and speaks with this booming, incredibly authoritative voice. It says, "I am man-shepherd, Poemandres, mind of all masterhood. I know what thou desirest, and I'm with thee everywhere." Wow, right? This is the ultimate cosmic mentor, revealing itself straight to the human mind and offering to unlock literally the deepest secrets of existence. And almost instantly, a deeply visceral clash erupts at the very dawn of creation. The narrator watches as absolutely everything dissolves into this sweet, joyous, limitless light. It's pure perfection. But then, a gloomy, coiling darkness starts creeping in. The text describes it as serpentine, twisting and coiling in these heavy, sinuous folds. It eventually morphs into this chaotic, moist nature that literally belches smoke like a roaring fire, and it wails with this agonizing, terrifying groan. Right when things seem completely chaotic, a holy word, known as the Logos, shoots down directly out of that joyous light and lands right onto that wailing darkness. The Logos basically leaps out to bring order to the chaos. You can think of it as divine reason. It separates the pure, active fire and air from the heavy, unformed sludge of earth and water. It is this exact, pivotal moment where pure, rational thought commands raw, wild matter to finally take shape. Now, this divine intervention sets up what we can call the cosmic architecture. The formative mind creates 7 rulers. You can picture these as massive planetary spheres that physically box in or enclose this brand new sensory world. And their rigid, mechanical, absolutely uncompromising rule over the material realm, well, that is what we mortals call fate. These spheres are set turning in endless, inescapable cycles, locking everything into a closed system of cosmic law. But here is where the story shifts beautifully. Way up above this mechanical, ticking clockwork of fate, the All-Father Mind brings forth a totally new creation. It creates the archetypal man. This is a glorious, immortal being, and get this, he is entirely co-equal to God himself. In fact, God the Father falls incredibly deeply in love with this being simply because the archetypal man perfectly mirrors God's own radiant divine image. Driven by pure curiosity, this divine man wants to see what's going on down below with the creation of the spheres. The ancient text paints this unbelievable picture. He bent his face downwards through the harmony, breaking right through its strength, and showed to downward nature God's fair form. It's honestly a beautiful yet incredibly tragic romance. He literally tears through the celestial spheres, looks down, and becomes utterly obsessed with his own gorgeous reflection shining in the dark material waters below. Down below, nature sees this infinitely beautiful divine form, and she is absolutely captivated. I mean, who wouldn't be? She wraps herself completely around the archetypal man in this passionate, wild cosmic embrace. They intertwine, completely mixing the immortal, divine spirit of man with the irrational, heavy, mortal elements of earth and water. Just like that, they become eternal lovers, completely bound together in the messy physical world. So the crucial point is, this cosmic embrace is exactly why you and I suffer from the twofold human condition today. Because of this, humanity is literally torn in half. On one hand, we possess a divine aspect, an essential immortal man that sits completely above the celestial harmony, representing our eternal, sleepless nature. But on the other hand, we wear this earthly aspect. We have a mortal body that is totally trapped by the rigid laws of fate, constantly overcome by physical sleep and bodily needs.
To really grasp the depths of this trap, we can actually look at a complementary mystical text called the Pistis Sophia. It introduces this fascinating concept of the counterfeiting spirit. What is that? Well, it's essentially a heavy spiritual vesture or cloak that the rulers of fate forcefully bind to the human soul, and its entire relentless job is to constantly push and compel the soul toward worldly sins, physical desires, and endless earthly appetites. Blinded by this counterfeiting spirit, the poor soul completely forgets its divine origin and just wanders aimlessly in the dark. And I have to warn you, the ancient texts are brutally clear about this. If you expend all your love and attention solely on the physical body, your soul is left exposed, tormented by an avenging daimon. It becomes trapped in this vicious cycle of endlessly striving to fulfill physical appetites that simply can never, ever be satisfied. But don't worry, because right here, the vision reaches its pivotal climax. So how do we actually escape this cycle? Well, the Poemandres drops this absolute gem of a secret. But body's sleep became the soul's awakening, and closing of the eyes, true vision. It means that by consciously turning our backs on the material senses and all those bodily illusions while we are still alive, our true inner mind can finally snap out of it and awaken from the heavy, hypnotic trance of the material world. And this massive awakening is exactly what prepares us for the great ascent. This is literally an incredible step-by-step roadmap for the soul immediately following physical death. First, the physical body dissolves back into nature. Second, our mortal senses and those lower passions withdraw back to their chaotic sources. And finally, the naked soul, totally stripped of its physical baggage, begins a labyrinthine ascension, rocketing upward right back through the harmony of those planetary spheres. And this brilliantly illustrates what happens next. As the soul speeds upward, it has to undergo a rigorous, methodical purification. At each of the 7 planetary gates, the soul is required to strip away a specific earthly vice. Zone by zone, it actively sheds the energy of growth and waning, the divisive evils, the guile of desires, arrogance, daring rashness, the striving for wealth, and finally, ensnaring falsehood. It is literally handing back all those dark, toxic energies it absorbed from the physical world. Bringing back that thrilling imagery from the Pistis Sophia, we see this triumphant soul bravely marching up to confront those cosmic tyrants. It utters a secret mystery, completely undoing the seals of the counterfeiting spirit once and for all. In the ultimate act of cosmic defiance, the soul drops its earthly destiny right back into the laps of the rulers of fate, basically saying, "Take your destiny, I'm a stranger to you forever," as it leaves their dark realm entirely in the dust. The transformation at the stage, it is absolutely spectacular. The text literally says, "And in that moment, that soul becometh a great light stream, it becometh entirely wings of light." The liberated soul starts glowing so exceedingly bright, we're talking 49 times brighter than it was before, that the lower rulers actually fall flat on their faces in absolute terror. They are completely and utterly unable to comprehend the pure, blinding light that's passing right through them. Now clothed in nothing but pure power, having successfully stripped away every last mortal illusion, the soul finally arrives at the 8th nature, which is often called the Ogdoad. This is the ultimate safe haven, situated far, far above those controlling rulers of fate. Up here, the soul receives the warmest welcome imaginable. It joins the heavenly beings, the immortal powers, and begins singing these ecstatic hymns of praise to the Father, using a divine language completely its own. But believe it or not, even the 8th sphere isn't the final destination. The ultimate good end for those who have gained this secret gnosis is what's called the ultimate surrender. The soul doesn't just sit back and watch the divine. No, it surrenders itself completely to become one of the powers. It merges entirely and beautifully right back into God. It is exactly like a single drop of water returning to its rightful place in an infinite ocean of light. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a deeply powerful, highly provocative question straight from the ancient text itself. The cosmic entity, Poemandres, calls out to all of humanity and asks, "Why have ye given yourselves up to death, while yet ye have the power of sharing deathlessness?" Wow. It's a profound, ringing call to wake up, to realize that divine spark you have inside you. The knowledge is right there. So the real question is, are you ready to open the eyes of your mind, cast off that counterfeiting spirit, and begin your very own ascent?